Most people think aging means slowing down, but today's guest believes your best years don't have to be behind you.
I don't think any of us aspire to end up frail in a nursing home, and yet 1 in 3 women may end up there. No one aspires to that. So to age with power, meaning you get to do what you want to do when you want to do it, at the rate you want to do it. You can still enjoy the company of others. You are not dependent on other people, and you feel mentally and physically strong. That is what aging with power is. A good lifestyle program is not predicated by willpower. It is determined by discipline. The discipline to put yourself on your schedule. I have found that until you believe that you are worth the daily investment in your health, that nothing else matters.
Most people think aging means slowing down, but today's guest believes your best years don't have to be behind you. She's an orthopedic surgeon, a researcher, an author, and a leading voice on what it really takes to stay strong as you age. Dr. Vonda Wright doesn't just treat injuries, she helps people rebuild, rethink, and completely redefine what aging looks like. Her work has changed the game when it comes to mobility, bone health, and injury prevention, especially for people over 40 who want to keep doing the things they love without slowing down. Her latest book is called Unbreakable, a women's guide to aging with power. And it's exactly that, a blueprint for getting stronger, sharper, and more resilient with every decade. We're going to go deep today into aging, performance, longevity, and what it really means to live with power. Dr. Vonda Wright, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. And so, Dr. Wright, your work has been transformative in shifting the narrative around aging, especially when it comes to mobility and staying active. Can you maybe just start by telling us what inspired you to focus on active aging and how your background as an orthopedic surgeon really shaped your approach to helping people age well?
Absolutely. So I've been doing this my entire career. I first started studying the master's athlete in, 2004 when I was coming out of my training, and we had the Senior Olympics in Pittsburgh where I was training. And what Senior Olympics means for people who aren't familiar with it is you must be 50 to compete at this national games. They have multiple sports, everything you would ever think of, from track and field to volleyball to basketball, but some unique sports like bowling. So you must qualify by winning your state games. So these are recreational athletes, but as good as it gets in the master's age. And so, we conducted some of the first studies on these athletes, and we just documented what I already knew, which was that we can be healthy, vital, active, joyful long into the foreseeable future, and that we should count age not necessarily by the number of birthday candles on our cake, but our capacity. Because if you ever have the opportunity to watch masters athletes in action, you will be mesmerized by the feats of physical and mental endurance that we're capable of. Because here's the deal: in standard medical studies, when they are large population studies, such as the Health ABC, which was a nationally funded study looking at a cohort of 70-year-olds and just followed them over time. When we look at population studies, we're looking at everybody. And what do we know about everybody in the United States? 70% of people don't do dedicated mobility or exercise any day of the week. So, what the conclusions we draw from population studies are not necessarily the conclusions of what we can be when we invest in our mobility every day. They are the conclusions we draw from sedentary lifestyle. So our work I created a group called PRIMA, the Performance and Research Initiative for Masters Athletes, and we did a series of studies over 15 years. What we found, in summary, was that if you take the variable of sedentary living out and purposely move, and I can describe to you what that means to me, every day, we do not have to slow down until much later in life. We can retain our brains, we can retain our muscle, we can retain our bones, and we produce a protein called clotho, which is the longevity protein, all from staying active.
Wow. And so I will follow up because you said, what does that mean to you, the movement throughout the day?
You know what? When I prescribe exercise for people, I've learned over these decades as a clinician that it is not enough to say, oh, just go do something, find a way to be active, because people really crave instruction. So I prescribe and redescribe in my new book, Unbreakable, my prescription patterns, which is facing your future, F.A.C.E. So, as adults, our exercise programs must include flexibility and joint motion, F, aerobic exercise. C is carry a load or weightlifting. And I don't call it weightlifting because you can carry a load of anything, 5-gallon buckets in the garage and it counts. And then E, F.A.C.E, equilibrium and agility. Those are the components that I prescribe to.
So I love the phrase aging with power. Can you
Mhm.
describe what that means to you and to everyone else?
You know what we call what we're looking ahead to aging with power, because I think all of us have a picture of aging in our head. Sometimes it's related to who we've seen gone before us, maybe the way our grandmothers aged, maybe what we see in the media. I don't think any of us aspire to end up frail in a nursing home, and yet 1 in 3 women may end up there, and many men and women who cannot maintain their VO2 max above what we call the fragility line, which means you can no longer live independently. No one aspires to that. So to age with power, meaning you get to do what you want to do when you want to do it at the rate you want to do it. You can still enjoy the company of others. You are not dependent on other people, and you feel mentally and physically strong. That is what aging with power is. And it sets a new paradigm shift, not just being a victim of the passage of time, it's inevitable, but really knowing that investing in your health and aging, you can change the trajectory of your future.
And like you said, do the things you want to do. It seems like resilience, both physical and mental, is,
Mhm.
the cornerstone of aging with power. And so what would
Mhm.
you say are the key factors that help people maintain that physical and mental resilience over time?
You know what? I am a student of the work of Stephen Stein and Paul Bartone, who are researchers looking at a concept called hardiness. It's a part of resilience. Resilience is the banner of getting back up when you fall down, for instance. It's just time and time again being able to muscle through. But there are components of it. One we're all familiar with is grit. Dr. Duckworth out of University of Pennsylvania describes that, but that is different from hardiness. And I'm getting to your question. Grit is that character that keeps us trying again and again and again and again, despite all odds. Hardiness adds the factor of rationality, of attitude, of mindset to the resilience picture. So when I talk about mental resilience with aging, it's being committed to continue working to yourself. These two researchers have 3 C's, and there are multiple chapters in the book about mindset and goal setting and mental resilience. But number one, the first C is a commitment to understanding that your life is not over yet, that you still have purpose, that you're going to move forward every day. The second concept is challenge, meaning, yes, we know that it's going to get hard in the future, but you will take those small steps and rise to the challenge. And the third C is control, which is that sense that we still have agency to make the decisions that will enable us to go forward. Those are critical mindsets for aging with power. And of all the 10 characteristics that these researchers found that people with high hardiness possess, one surprising characteristic, even in people they studied that were prisoners of war, was that they maintained a physical practice of fitness. So whether you're in the gym doing push-ups, whether you're in war doing push-ups or any other thing, investing in your body and maintaining it as strong as you can builds mental resilience. And that's not just an attitude change, it's a biochemical change as we contract our muscles and they transcribe for proteins, which go to our brain and build better neurons. So Our body works all together. So physical resilience will build mental resilience.
That's fascinating, and I love that explanation because I haven't heard that before, but it makes so much sense and it's kind of clicking for me. So, when it comes to that physical strength, then we know that exercise is crucial, as you mentioned, and it also supports that mental well-being, but
Mhm.
sticking to an exercise plan can be challenging for a lot of people. What tips do you have for creating, an exercise routine that's not only effective but sustainable?
So I think there's a lot of factors that go into people having really good intentions and then not taking care of themselves. And I'm certainly not immune to those factors, but I think at the baseline, it can't be too complicated. It can't be a 25-week stepwise, blah, blah, blah. For professional athletes, that's exactly what it is. But for mere mortals, which 70%, 99% of us are, it has to be something we understand and can do reproducibly, number one. Number two, it has to be accessible, right? Most of us will go to a gym if it's 10 minutes from our house. Distance is a real barrier. Number three, sometimes we need the camaraderie. We need to do it in a social situation so that it's not lonely. I am telling you these three things because if we recognize the barriers to our success, we can get in front of it instead of like, I just don't feel like it today. But that leads me to the point of the fact that sometimes we just don't feel like it, and that's fine. Some days we just need to give ourselves the grace and not turn that I don't feel like it today into shame, but also recognize that most days we may not feel like it, and that a good lifestyle program is not predicated by willpower, which is what everybody says. Oh, I don't have the willpower. No, willpower goes away pretty quickly. It is determined by discipline, the discipline to put yourself on your schedule. And that discipline is founded on one thing. I've been a doctor for a very long time, and before that, a nurse. And here's the truth: I have found that until you believe that you are worth the daily investment in your health, that nothing else matters. If you do not believe that you are worth it, you will not invest in yourself. And so that mindset of worthiness and I am worth saving is critical to the discipline that it takes to be consistent.
And so when you're saying, how does someone get to that point? Like how, when you've seen that maybe in patients or in your practice, like, is there a tipping point where people, it just clicks for them and they're like, yes, I'm going to commit and I am worthy? Or are there things that we can do to, progress there?
I don't think it's a light switch goes on. I think a light switch goes on every January 1st, and by January 17th, the light switch goes off. So that's why building habits of discipline. So, with pro athletes, for instance, I've had the pleasure of taking care of a lot of pro athletes who have tremendous discipline. They build ritual and routine into their lives, right? They do the same thing at the same time every day. So they don't have to recreate or spend energy thinking about, oh my God, where's my shoes? Where am I going to go work out? Do I have time between meetings? It's a ritual. So I think in the lives of the rest of us, building that kind of this is what I do. This is my lifestyle makes it easier. But the personal journey of understanding your own worth is something I've tried to motivate people by, I've tried everything. I've tried, here's your health scare, you've got to do this or you're going to die. Here's the nice way of, this is really good for you, you're going to feel amazing. Rewarding people, even, at the University of Pittsburgh, we had prima classes. People paid us a lot of money to lead them in classes, and yet there continued to be an attrition rate. So that's why I say it has to be an internal desire to feel better, to look better, to invest in yourself, because at the end of the day, only you can move you.
Absolutely. And so I'm going to quote a post of yours on Instagram from a
Oh,
little bit earlier in the year. Yeah, I just loved it. And I think it's a great one to share. You said, 2025 is a year I will elevate bones to everyone's top of mind.
yeah.
And I mean, we love that at AlgaCal. We're
Uh-huh.
so bone health focused. Can you comment maybe on the state of awareness around bone health, around women and bone health, and the health of everyone's bones?
Maybe because the algorithm is feeding it to me, but I'm going to tell you right now, I think I've accomplished that, and it's only May. Because
Hmm.
last year, and for my entire career, I can tell you, nobody's talking about bones at all. In fact, prior to a few years ago, no one was really talking about muscle science, right? And what's ironic is that I'm a muscle scientist with my lab at Pittsburgh was a muscle lab, both the one I worked in and the one I developed myself with another partner. So ironic that muscle came into play about 3 years ago. I said that for the first time last July on another podcast, Diary of a CEO, and then consistently dripping out why bones are not just structural. I mean, I'm in my office, so I have bones, right? They're just not structural. They're just not hard columns. They are hard columns of material, but bones hold up the muscle. Without bones, muscle would be a heaping pile of metabolic tissue doing its thing without form, without moving us, right? So, how critical are bones? But that's not it. Bones are the home of our blood cells, right? We make our blood cells in our pelvic bones and in our long bones. Bones are also endocrine organs. They secrete a variety of hormones that go all over the body. And listen, if I were the person designing by intelligent design and I wanted to be able to communicate with a whole organism from top to bottom, and I had put bones from top to bottom, what would I use to communicate? I would use the bones because they're everywhere, right? Well, lo and behold, that's what happens. Bones are master communicators. And just to give you some examples, osteocalcin goes to the brain and stimulates the production of BDNF, which helps makes new neurons. It goes to the pancreas and helps with insulin production and muscles, insulin sensitivity, and glucose management. If you're a man, osteocalcin goes to the Leydig cells in your testicles and helps you make testosterone. To name a few, bones communicate with everything. So just when we think bones are the strong silent type, hanging out, not saying a word until we fracture one of them and they're screaming, nothing could be further from the truth. They are critical metabolic organs that do all the things I talked about, but importantly, serve as a storehouse for minerals, including calcium. People don't realize this, but calcium is critical for most cellular metabolic functions we have in the body. So we store it away in the bones and pull it out when we need it. What a magnificent system.
Absolutely. And from what I'm hearing, again, I'm not a doctor, but bones are foundational, they're crucial. And yet, I mean, other than the past year of you talking about it more and more, and now we're spreading this awareness, not talked about so often. And so I've been working at AlgaCal for a little over 11 years. And you know, what I hear is osteoporosis, a silent disease, kind of a disease in older people. But I'm not thinking that anymore. And so my question is, when should we start caring about our bones?
Well, I'm glad you brought this up because we may start paying attention when we're old,
Mm-hmm.
but bone health is a lifetime pursuit. Let me tell you why. Bone health begins before puberty, but let's just choose puberty. When we come into our estrogen, estrogen is a critical hormone for the health of our bones. And once we get it, we grow rapidly. Our bones lengthen rapidly, right? We all go through our growth spurt. Well, that's no mistake. That is by design. It takes our hormones, but we will reach peak bone mass as a woman around 25, sometimes 30. Men will reach it at 30. If we do not lay down enough bone in our youth because we don't eat enough, because we're exercising so much and then not refeeding enough, we will not lay down bone. If we skip our periods because we're so athletic for 6 to 9 months, we're not laying down bone. And we have great studies from youth athletes showing that. If we have a chronic disease like asthma and have to be on high dose steroids, we're not going to lay down enough bone. If we're partying too much and drinking a lot of alcohol and smoking because we're young, that is like bone poison. So we can get to our 30s and never lay down enough bone. And I see that every day because as an orthopedic surgeon, I get a DEXA scan on almost everybody. And it is not 1 week goes by that I do not have a 20-year-old. Last week it was a 20-year-old or a 24-year-old with poor bone density. So for those young women at 20 who have poor bone density, I present it to them as an opportunity to get it right because they still have 10 years to reach peak bone density. But once we do, and we continue to underfeed and we continue to not take care of our bones, we start decreasing in bone density and not even know it. And then there is a phenomenon when we are pregnant where we're taking a lot of calcium from our bones to make our baby. And then when we're breastfeeding, which I am all in favor of breastfeeding, do not hear me people say that this is bad. I just want you to be aware you are making food for your child to the tune of 500 milligrams of calcium a day. So you must be very, very careful to eat enough to replace those minerals so that not only is your baby fed, but your bones are rebuilt. Because it is not unheard of for women to develop stress fractures during and around pregnancy. And I don't want you to. You just got to get ahead of it. And then finally, once we start losing our estrogen, starting around 40, when we have very few eggs left, we may not even be in perimenopause yet, but our estrogen's declining. And estrogen is so critical for the health of bones. We're going to start losing bone density to the tune of 2 to 3% in the 5 to 7 years in the menopause transition, or I call it menolescence, to reflect our adolescence. We're now in our menolescence. We can lose that and not even know it. And unfortunately, many women don't know it. And they've never even been offered a DEXA scan. So that's why I'm everywhere right now talking about everybody needs a DEXA scan or a REM scan, which is an ultrasound version, right? We need to recognize that things are going to take our bones away from us. We need to get in front of it with a lifestyle and nutrition so that we do not end up frail, broken in the hospital with me having to fix your hip. That is not the destination I want anybody to get to.
And so you mentioned DEXA scans.
Yeah.
And from my understanding, for women, the recommended age is 65, men a little bit later, 70 or 75. But at what age do you think we should be getting them?
The recommended age is 65. That's when insurance will pay for it. If you are 65 and get a DEXA scan for the first time and have a T-score equaling osteoporosis minus 2.5, it is a hard and long road back, people. I suggest if you have any of the risk factors for osteoporosis, your mother is shrinking, you are shrinking, you had a fracture after age 20, you smoke and drank excessively, you had to take medications that would harm your bone density, any of the multitude of risk factors, go get a DEXA scan now so that you have the longest possible runway, either with your hormones or before you're frail, to correct it.
In Unbreakable, you mention the musculoskeletal system of menopause. And so, can you explain what that is and why it's important for women to be aware of this as they navigate the aging process?
Absolutely. So the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause is a conglomeration of the multiple signs and symptoms that women were coming to me with. I've been a doctor a long time. And so I estimate I've seen 100,000 people in my career. And you begin to, as you're listening, hear patterns of speech. And so as I went through my own perimenopause, which my story is at 40, I was in the best shape of my life, going along, building a career, all the things. At 47, I thought I was going to die. Night sweats, brain fog, total body pain, heart palpitations, all the things. And at the time, I didn't know because menopause education wasn't, it's not great now. It was zero then, right? So, as I became more menopause literate and I started listening to my women in a different way, they would say these things to me without me bringing it up. They would say, "You know what, doc? I don't know what's happening to me. I think I'm falling apart." And as I'm listening, they would say, "But you know what? I asked my doctor and he just said nothing was wrong with me. I think I must be going crazy. Am I making this up?" And then the third thing they say to me, which continues to go on and it breaks my heart, and I don't know why we know this, but women every day say to me, "But you know what? I did not want to come in today because I have such a high pain tolerance. But I just couldn't do it anymore." Enough people say that to me surrounding complaints coming to my office like, "My shoulder doesn't move anymore. My total body hurts. I don't know why my knees are killing me." And I started putting the puzzle pieces together and going back to the literature. And do you know that we have known about components of the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause for 30 or 75 years. And yet we needed to put it together in a nomenclature so a woman could walk into a doctor's office and say, I'm midlife. This is what's hurting me. I think I have the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause. So it's total body pain, which is called arthralgia, due to the inflammation of losing estrogen. Frozen shoulder, which is shoulders will not move even without injury. And women can't hook their bras, their shoulder, literally, they're stuck like this. Increased joint pain. We have known for 75 years something called the arthritis of menopause, where women will have increased a progression of their arthritis starting after 50. We've known it, and yet we haven't gotten in front of it. We know we lose muscle. We know we lose bone. We know that we can prevent osteoporosis, and there has not been enough conversation. So by putting this nomenclature around it, by publishing a paper for which we paid $5,000 to make it open access, meaning anybody can download it and read it. More than 330,000 people around the world have downloaded that paper, read it. I hope they've taken it to their doctor to start a conversation because it's critically needed.
Let's dive into a little bit more about Unbreakable,
Yeah.
starting with nutrition. And
Yeah.
so, what key nutrients should we be focusing on to nourish our bones? And how can we get them through our diet?
Sure, to nourish our bones. So, I think the first mindset change we have to recognize is that whether our goals are better bones, losing weight, I always do this because I choose to recompose people, not make them thin, or live long, we can't starve ourselves. None of us stay away from frailty by starving ourselves. So, number one, we have to eat enough calories. Number two, those calories for bones need to be full of protein. The bones are 90% collagen. We need the building blocks of bones to build bones, right? So protein, the research you can find will cite up to 0.73 grams per pound, but who can do the math? We need higher levels of protein. So I just say to my people, 1 gram per pound. And so that we have a goal to get to. So protein, vitamin D, anybody who lives in the United States south of the Mason-Dixon line, which is a line going through the middle of the United States, or north of the Mason-Dixon line, doesn't get enough sunshine to make enough vitamin D. And why do we need vitamin D? Because we need to increase our absorption of calcium, which is the primary micronutrient housed in the scaffold of bone. And bones store that for the rest of your body to use in its biochemical pathways. So we need enough dietary calcium, vitamin D to absorb it, protein to provide the other building blocks. You can get a little bit further down the road and think about zinc and selenium and boron, magnesium we need at a level for our bones. Those are the nutrients that I usually have people think about and be very systematic about when we're building better bone.
And so, in your book, and even now, you're really encouraging a multi nutrient approach. And so, you've said, the majority of our bones are maybe collagen, but why is this multi nutrient approach so important?
Well, our bodies work in a system, for a lot of times in health and wellness and longevity and biohacking, we're looking for the max min, meaning or min max. What is the minimum I have to do to get the maximum result? And I get that mindset. However, that is not the way our body works. Our body works in an intricate homeostasis, meaning everybody's talking to each other. We're balancing input from one side to affect the other side. It would make no sense to only eat protein. It would make no sense to only make sure you have enough calcium because you might not even absorb that calcium without enough vitamin D. Our body works in a harmonious, almost orchestra or choreography, and you need each of those parts for everybody else to work well.
Absolutely. So, the synergy is what I'm hearing. And so, we've already touched on exercise for optimal bone health, but what specific types of exercise do you recommend to prevent bone loss?
So I think a lot of people, most people right now are talking about building muscle mass. So we can build muscle in a lot of ways. If you want to build bulk, it's called hypertrophy. you lift lighter weights for more reps. If you want endurance, you lift lighter weights for a lot of reps. If you want to build strength and power, which is my goal for my people, because strength is what you can lift, right? But power is lifting strength over time. I want you to be able to get up from the floor, right? To move this body, not just be strong in one rep. To do that, we have to fatigue our muscles. We have to lift heavy enough to fatigue, to tear them down so that they will rebuild. So I prescribe heavy lifting for women. Women, you can lift anything you want. Listen, people tend to get offended when I prescribe in one channel. I'm just telling you what works, people. We must lift heavy in order to stimulate enough muscle protein synthesis to build the muscle we need so that we don't fall down or stay lean. So lifting heavy. The other things that I prescribe that are frequently forgotten, although I've seen people pick up on this, is I prescribe agility and foot speed. So I work in this remarkable place that called the Lake Nona Performance Club, which is an elite performance center, and we have a strength conditioning coach whose specialty is speed in performance athletes, right? So I always have her teach women who come to work with me foot speed. We lose type 2 muscle fibers as we age, but if we don't have the speed to not trip over your dog or not trip over my work bag, which I always trip over, to jump over it, we will fall. Number one. Number two, we work on balance, right? Because by and large, bones do not break and then you fall. Sometimes, a few times that happens, but percentage wise, we fall and then we break. It's a terminal fall. It's the deadly fall that puts us in a bad place. So that's why foot speed, agility, balance are so critical and why I prescribe them.
That makes so much sense. Instead of just focusing on one thing, is
Yeah.
how can you prevent as well that fall? And
Mhm.
so, beyond nutrition and exercise, are there any lifestyle factors that you want to really highlight for positive impact on bone health?
Well, smoking of any kind inhibits bone healing. We know that. I mean, we know that from spine surgery, where we're trying to get bones to heal. We know that from actually the metabolism of building bone. And sometimes we're getting over the smoking thing, right? Richard Carmona, the 17th Surgeon General of the United States, banned indoor smoking. So it really cut down the amount of smoking in this country until people decided vaping was a good alternative. But the fact of the matter is, vaping is also poison for bone. So I don't care how cool it looks. If you don't want to um, hinder your bones, that's got to go. The other thing we know is that alcohol is not amazing for your bones. We also know that sugar and the constant inflammation that causes, not great for your bone health. We also know that the carbonation and diet sodas, the not great for bone health. So think about going out on a Saturday night, you have a rum and Coke and you're smoking a vape, you're just killing your bones. You can have fun other ways, but as a bone doctor, that is a perfect setup for tragedy of your bones.
What's your perspective on hormone replacement therapy? Should women consider this as part of their bone health regimen? At what stage of life should they be exploring this option with their doctor?
When you think of bone growth, you think of three types of cells, really: an osteoblast that builds bone, right? It's putting bone on; an osteoclast that's resorbing all the minerals. And in normal life, when you have enough estrogen, those are in balance. Our bones are dynamically remodeling all the time, such that we replace our bones every 10 years. But estrogen is critical not only for osteoblast health, but osteoclast, the bone resorption, control. So that when we do not have estrogen anymore, either it's totally gone or it's declining, there is less regulation of the osteoclast. And so, although we are still building, there's no homeostasis. We are absorbing bone faster than we're building. And so, having estrogen on board by taking bioidentical hormone replacement, we resume the balance. So, here's my position on HRT, or hormone optimization. Every woman is a sentient being with agency. You have the right to choose. However, you must make your choice based on facts and not fear. We cannot go around clinging to old data and fear mongering that everybody who takes hormones are going to get cancer. That there is no data. You get to have your own risk assessment. The baby booming women, those are in their mid 60s, missed out on these conversations because of the Women's Health Initiative study that came out when they were going through menopause. They are playing catch up like nobody's business. The Generation Xers like me are like, I'm not aging like that. I am going to fix this for the world so that my millennial daughters and sisters never have to go through what we went through and never have to face the consequences like the baby boomers. So I like young women entering their post-reproductive years to become literate, menopause literate, read the books, read Estrogen Matters, read Unbreakable, become literate so that you can find the right clinician and make your hormone decision. You don't have to decide or to take hormones, but you must decide based on facts. If for no other reason you decide not to take hormones, to save your bones, I want you to seriously consider estrogen replacement. Because here's what we know: 1 in 2 women will have an osteoporotic fracture in their lifetime. That's either me or it's you. I mean, it's real at this level, me or you. When you have a fracture and it happens to be your hip, 50% of the time you will not return to the home where you were living before the fracture, and up to 30% of the time you die. And that is not hysteria. That is the facts. And I'm the orthopedic surgeon who shows up to fix you. So if for no other reason you make this decision to do hormones, it's to save your bones, because we know we can prevent this if we get in front of it.
Thank you. That was really powerful. And before we close, I'd love to end with a quick round of rapid fire questions, just a few fast-paced prompts to get your gut reaction. So think short and sweet and whatever first comes to mind. So, all right. What are your top risk factors for osteoporosis?
Family history, not having periods for long periods of time in your youth, smoking, and those are the top 3.
What is the most common misconception when it comes to bone health?
That it's a disease of old ladies. Bone health is a concern from the minute of our birth and long past our death. Bones are the last living testament of your life. We can dig up your bones and tell you exactly how you lived. They're the record.
We often discuss prevention, but for postmenopausal women who have already experienced significant bone loss, is there hope for rebuilding bone health?
Yes, there is. You know what? We thought that you could just maintain it, but we know now that in small portions we can rebuild bone. But it takes all the building blocks we've talked about today with impact exercise, lean muscle mass, smart nutrition, hormone replacement, and sometimes medical interventions with drugs, depending on how osteoporotic you are.
What are some simple lifestyle changes that can help improve bone density without requiring major effort or time commitment?
Nothing in life is free, people. If you if you want to live the best you can, just layer on some lifestyles. Eat enough protein, jump up and down, stop smoking to poison your bones.
What are the key nutrients for maintaining healthy bones?
Yep, protein, calcium from food, vitamin D for absorption, and micronutrients, magnesium, which will also help you sleep.
And the last one, how important is sleep for aging and maintaining overall health?
You know, sleep is so, you know, what I used to say as a mobility doctor, oh, exercise first. And then I had a period of time where I was like, oh, nutrition trumps exercise, which it does. However, now sleep is at the top of the heap because it is our restorative period. It helps us become uninflamed. It decreases our cortisol levels. And without adequate sleep, we will not have a good diet and we will not exercise.
Dr. Wright, this conversation was powerful, so beneficial, incredible for a lack of a better word. Thank you so much. I think a lot of the people are going to go away from this episode with their minds blown about what's actually possible as they age. If you're listening and you're over 40 or just sick of being told slow down, do yourself a favor and check out Dr. Wright's book. It's called Unbreakable, A Women's Guide to Aging with Power. You'll love it. It's 6 weeks of real training, bone building exercises, blood work basics, and even recipes that will make you feel like a machine as you age. You can follow Dr. Wright on Instagram at Dr. Vonda Wright. She drops gold there almost daily, and you can hit up her website, drvondawright.com, for more tools and resources that actually move the needle on your health. Dr. Wright, before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add?
You know what? I'm thankful that you're shining a light not only on the nutrients that we need for building bone, but on midlife health in general. I want people to remember that midlife starts at 38. It is not something that starts in our grandmother's age. Middle of our life is 38, so we all need to pivot and realize that the best years can be to come if we invest in ourselves the way we need to.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you everyone for listening.